The only real life experience I've had driving an actual car, I drove a BMW M3 around Silverstone for 20 minutes in January 2019. That's my lot. I remember lining up in the grid, I look to my right and it's just that helmet, that white and German striped helmet. You just like... And then Terry Grant walks up to me and just went, "You just beat Sebastian Vettel." And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
Welcome back to the Cool Down, everyone listening, watching, wherever you are in the world, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are, welcome. Today's guests we got in at the perfect time. They've been on my list for a while now, but they had a pretty eventful weekend last weekend. In a real race car at the Race of Champions, beat four-time F1 World Championship winner, Sebastian Vettel. You might know Lucas from F1 Esports, where he did an absolutely incredible job in 2021, but there is way more to him than just an esports driver. And today we talk all about it. So welcome to podcast 27 of the Cool Down, Lucas Blakeley. My Scottish friend, welcome to the Cool Down podcast, mate. First and foremost, it's been a very busy week for you, but today, it's Tuesday morning, we're having a chat, actually afternoon, 1 p.m. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm not too tired, which is a blessing because I could very easily still be in bed right now. But yeah, I'm good. How's you?
Mate, you could have just set the camera up while you were still in bed and just, a bit of pillow talk. That'd have been fine. That'd have been cool.
No, I'm awake. I'm awake now. It's all good.
But I'll tell you what, we're talking just before we started recording, and we will get on to a certain Race of Champions, which has been a mad few days for you. But tell everyone listening your journey back from Sweden back to Scotland. Left at 8 a.m. and got home at 11 p.m.
Yeah, it was a long day of travel. I mean, I left the hotel at 8 a.m., which is 7 a.m. UK time. And then I travelled to the airport about 45 minutes, then the flight to Stockholm, then the flight from Stockholm to Amsterdam, then the layover was like over 6 hours, which was unbelievable. I was so bored because
6 hours.
Yeah, I was just sitting like, what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. And then sitting in Amsterdam airport. Thankfully, it's a good airport, so there was, it wasn't, too boring. But then, as boring as it could have been. And then I got back to Glasgow, and then got home, and my God, it was a long day. Just all I did was travel. That was it.
Wow. I mean, look, this is just to paint the picture to everyone listening and watching. It's not all glamour, okay? It's not all glamour being an esports star, Race of Champions. It's not all glamorous, all right? You still have to travel like everyone else does. Lucas, mate, I guess, look, there's a reason your name has been doing the rounds recently, because over this weekend just gone, you achieved something pretty special. But before we get into the details of what happened in the end, e-ROC, first of all, Race of Champions, electronic Race of Champions. Where did this start? Like, when did you see, because you need to qualify for this thing. When did that journey begin?
From going on Twitter, literally. I had to go on Twitter. I went on Twitter, and then I just saw that there was going to be e-ROC qualifiers on like the 14th, and this was the 13th of January. So I just saw, there's a qualifier for e-ROC. So that e-ROC.
So not even 2 months ago.
Not even a month ago. I don't think. I don't even think it's a month ago.
Oh yeah, God, not. Why am I thinking it's March? It's not even a month ago, and you didn't even know it. Oh my God, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
mate.
you're a month in the future, man. But but no. Basically, I saw it on the 13th, and in typical fashion, I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that." And then I hadn't played Assetto Corsa since like May, the previous, because that was the game that that the qualifiers were done and what e-ROC's done on. So I hadn't played that in May. I have a direct drive wheel, so like I hadn't really set that up properly. So I had to I just grinded for hours and hours and hours and hours trying to get all the settings, trying to understand what this game needs to be quick. Because I mean, I'm an F1 esports driver primarily, but trying to learn all these fine details in such a short space of time And then the next day it was a tournament on the 14th, and I had no idea how it worked. I didn't know it was a tournament until I was actually in it. I did the first round, and I was like, is that it? And then I hear your name, okay, Lucas Blakeley versus someone else. I'm like, there's another race. So I had to do the next race, then the next race, and then I was in the final, and then it was against Kevin Siggy. I was like, all right, bloody hell, it's, he's rapid, but we'll try.
Big name.
I lost the first round, and then I think I set a PB in the second one, and then I managed to win the third one. It was a best of 3, so I had to win. So I won the first qualifier to then get into the next qualifier that was like a week or a little while after in January.
Yeah.
And I sweated like crazy again, trying to like optimize every little detail. And then I had to do another tournament. And I know I had to go through a group stage to get into the tournament, then win, and you just had to win everything, and I managed to win that tournament, which meant I got to go to the Race of Champions in Sweden to compete in e-ROC, which is crazy to think that was the process now, because obviously you just focus on what the next thing is, but it was a lot of stuff to get to that point.
Wow. Like, that's incredibly impressive how you've managed to kind of essentially wing the process, backed by your obviously incredible ability, but also like, wow, that's actually mad to think that that's all transpired in a month. This last month, the entire process must be, how do you reflect looking at everything that's happened, not just how things turned out, but the whole process, jumping into a game you haven't raced in a long time as well, on a surface that you haven't been racing on? Because again, like we know you for F1 Esports, but clearly, there is plenty of transferable skill to surface that isn't quite as tarmacy, right?
Yeah. I mean, I generally like trying other platforms as well. Anyway, whether that's a set of course or I mean, I've raced on like various platforms before, so I like trying to be like diverse in my driving style, because I feel like it makes me a bit of a better driver. And I mean, I think if I'd just stuck to F1 all these years, I would not have got to e-ROC. So I love playing other games. It's something I really enjoy. I have competed in a set of Corsa previously, but not with my existing wheel properly. So it was so much to learn, such a short space of time. And reflecting back on absolutely everything as I sit here right now, it doesn't actually feel like it's happened. Like, if you told me yesterday morning I was in Sweden or whatever it was, I would tell you no, I wasn't. It doesn't feel, I'm back in my room where I always am. I mean, the only difference is that there's a trophy there, but that's it. It's crazy to think it's all transpired. It feels impossible that it actually happened, because it's like, no, that doesn't happen to, gamers. It does that stuff's not meant to happen. And yet it did, apparently. Like, it doesn't feel real, but it definitely happens.
On a broader level, in terms of, there was an opportunity, you saw it and you went for it, and you didn't worry too much about everything being planned. You just went with the flow, you gave it a go, and look at how things have transpired. And I think it's kind of that there is a broader kind of thing to learn from the story of Lucas Blakeley, e-ROC, beating Sebastian Vettel, IRL. Again, a month ago, it wasn't even on your radar. And it just goes to show that, when you see an opportunity,
you just got to grab it.
You don't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket, and you bought a ticket and you cashed it in, mate. And I'll tell you what, like, you should be incredibly proud of yourself. I think the whole sim racing community was like, the level of like positive outpouring after it happened was just, which you wouldn't have seen obviously straight after it happened, but it was just, mate, fucking incredible, man. You should be so proud. You like, have you got the trophy back there?
Yep, the trophy's that I can grab it if you want. It is there.
Go get it. I want to see the trophy up close. Even though on this recording software I can only see you in low quality, but
yep,
I'll see it. It will be quality. Oh, look at that.
Unfortunately, Jarno's is bigger, but that's the only thing I can complain about. I mean, that is that's it, and it's quite useful, because I mean, for traveling, I just do that, and then that's it. But it's it's great. It's like a cool design. It's not like any trophy I've had before. So yeah,
Look at
and
that.
I mean it's quite like the e-ROC Snow and Ice stands out. It's almost like I don't know, it's
Yeah.
you can I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, at least I mean when I got this and I got to take a picture in the press conference with it, I was like, I mean I don't feel as bad for coming second now. um, but at the same time, yeah, I mean it's a cool trophy. I've not had anything like it, that's for sure. And yeah, I mean it just
Mate, I
goes.
love that.
I mean, I've just got like there in the background is some of my, let's say, most like memorable trophies, and that's now up with them as well. Like I've got more on the top, but they're like just like ones that have sort of been amounted, but the ones there are like special ones.
I was going to say, so obviously a lot of people watching and listening, again, will have heard of you after e-ROC, will know you from F1 Esports, but those other trophies that have significance to you, can you kind of explain the stories behind them? Because obviously your racing career, isn't just video games, it's gone over years, right? Like, can you tell me the story behind those trophies just to get a bit more of an
So
idea?
yeah, so these trophies here that you can sort of see in the background as I talk, they are well, I mean, I used to do go-karting when I was younger. I always watched F1 when I was a kid. I was watching Lewis Hamilton on the TV, and I always wanted to be the next Lewis, basically. So, yeah, started karting in 2010. Raced it until 2015, until as happens to basically everybody these days. You run out of money and you can't. It becomes impossible to reasonably say you can continue. So, yep, that was my karting journey in a very brief. But these trophies, I mean, this one right here was from my first ever win in a go-kart, for example. That was 2011, December, winning in the rain. Still remember it to this day. I mean, I always will. I mean, it was your first ever win in anything. I've also got my first podium from 20 ever I got in Easy Kart. I remember that 2011, earlier in the year. And I've also actually got what other one have I got there? Oh yeah, and I've got my last ever go-kart win as well, 2015. So I've got like these sort of really memorable trophies there as well. So these are just sort of things I just yeah, I mean they're just sort of there to remind of, I guess. I mean that you did it, because it feels like a
Yeah.
lifetime ago. I mean that's I mean coming up 7 years since I had to stop karting, which if you that's 7 years, that's ridiculous. But thankfully I've been in the esports business a few now, and it sort of like justifies all that sacrifice and effort
Of
from
course.
from, because I mean everything that's amounted to this day is part, I mean, in massive part down to the sacrifice and effort and time and dedication from my family. Because I mean, if they didn't let me go on a go kart for the first time in the rain back in 2009, I wouldn't have ever gone on this sort of journey. I would never have ever got to this point. So I owe a lot of it back down to them. For all that time and money, and not just the money side, but the amount of sacrifice they had to make
Yeah, of
on
course.
their level so that I could do what I loved for as long as I did it. I mean, I did it for 5 years, well, 2010 to 2015. That's doesn't sound like a long time, but I mean, I got to do what I loved in that time. And now when you achieve something like I suppose I did it at the weekend there, that sort of again just justifies that it wasn't all wasted, which is always nice to reflect on, because it's a hell of a lot of sacrifice. But I'm glad that I've sort of made the best of what I've been given.
Mate, yeah, it's incredible. And it's nice to know that the skills that you cultivated in those early years essentially, didn't go to waste. Because I'm sure a lot of people get into go-karting and priced out, just like with your story. I feel like that happens, well, that does happen so often. And then are never able to return to motorsport. You've found a way to continue to cultivate and build that skill. And here we are today. I do want to talk actually a bit more about when you had to drop out in 2015, because, so how old were you in 2010? Did you start when you were 8?
Yes,
Or
I was 8 years old in 2010. I drove a kart for the first time when I was 7 because I was the idea was, oh, you have to be 8 years old, but I was like, nope, find somewhere, please. I need to drive before I'm 8. So I drove when I was a kart when I was 7. Started racing when I was 8, and then in 2015, what age would I have been then? I have no idea actually. Probably 14 maybe. Something like that. I mean, I was born in 2001, so I would have been 14 years old when I had to stop. Which, when I say that now, that's like I was still really young at that point. Like, wow. When I look at it now, that's quite insane. But it's been a while.
When you knocked it on the head, what level were you competing at? Were you was it national tournaments? Was it any international stuff? Like, what level were you relative to everyone else? And what kind of, because I've heard, budgets for go-karts go up to $250,000 a year. Like, I've heard some mad stories from people of just how much you can spend, but what was the, to come from, again, this is the whole thing about, coming from wealth and privilege where you can pay your way through and always get the opportunity to drive. Most kids don't have that. So what was that financial barrier that it got to? And it was like, as a family, you couldn't, you couldn't make that, step up.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of money some people spend in half a year we would never be able to spend, like, period. It's incredible. I mean, I mean, karting is just less and less accessible as years goes on, and it's sad to see, but I mean, that it doesn't surprise me at the same time, because it's like an arms race, motorsport in general. Like, if you want to win, the level will go up, so will the quality of everything, so will the demand. Unless things get restricted, it's not going to stop. But that's the way it is. But for us, I mean, I used to race. I mean, I started, my local kart club was Larkhall, Western Scotland Kart Club. People might have heard of it. I used to, basically, that was my local club. I raced in the club championships there effectively every year as my local kart club. I did that in 2010, like, to learn the ropes. 2011, I did something called Easy Kart, which was the first time I raced nationally. And that's when I got my first podium in the second round, which is one of the trophies in the background. But I remember that. That was like a really cool experience to race in England. I was like, oh wow, I'm racing out of Scotland. So back in
international.
Yeah, but that was the first time I did something like that. Raced in that. I didn't race all the races, sadly, but I did race quite most of the races that season. It started very strongly, and then it was like, a bit of a roller coaster from then. 2012, I made the jump into juniors, I believe, because you go from cadet class into the juniors. That was the first time I experienced that. 2013, I did the Scottish and the club championship for Minimax. I think I got second in both. This is really rattling my memory. I haven't thought of this in a while. But 2014 started well. I won like the opening 2 rounds of the championship at Larkhall. Then I went to do a test day at PFI, which is it's actually my favourite track. I only drove it once, but it was such a good track. Trent Valley Kart Club, I believe it's called. And my chassis got bent. Just that's how quickly it can go. I was there for a practice day. I wasn't even racing, and I got caught up in an incident I couldn't avoid, and the chassis got bent, and that really hurt. I mean, it just meant that I couldn't. You couldn't do it anymore. You couldn't go to the same, the same capacity, the same speed. You bend your chassis. It's not ideal, put it that way. So yeah, wasn't able to continue winning that season. So then I believe I made the transition into like the step ups. It was like Junior Max 24, like partway through 2014, because the Mini Max was, well, I can't win the championship anymore. I might as well try and step it up before I do the next season. Because again, like, trying to do karting nationally itself is really expensive. So it got to the point where, you could do maybe a round here and there of a championship in England, but it got, it was very much, you were stuck in not stuck, maybe that's not the right word, but you were doing just the club championship, because that was all that you could feasibly really do. And and then in and to give an idea of the financials as well, in 2014, maybe towards the end, I got a new chassis. because the other one was bent.
Yeah.
I did 3 heats and it got bent. Brand new chassis, and it was bent instantly. And this was before I even got to the championship. But it got to the point where, well, it's bent now, I'm just gonna have to drive with it. And that was a brand new chassis. It took 3 heats and didn't even get to the final because I couldn't race because the cart got bent. I was like, this is the way it works. This is why karting costs so much, because it's just bum. And that's, I mean, it's insane how much money it can cost if you're really pushing the boundaries of it. As you say, if you're doing like world championship level karting, then it costs more than certainly, some car racing. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. And then 2015, I did half the year, and then that was it. At least the second last race I ever competed in, I managed to win, and that's one of the trophies there. But that was it. I had to stop because it just got to the point where it was we're racing at the club. I'm not able to go up the ladder. Even though I've been very lucky to race like really talented people. I've raced, for example, like Gordy Much, who I believe now does Praga. I think he's actually racing with Jimmy Broadbent this year. I mean, he's a really good, really nice guy, but crazy bloody fast as well. And he's just one name that I picked off the top of my head. He's like really fast. I got to race him. I used to race Dexter Patterson, who won the world championship in his class at the time a few years ago. He was bloody quick well. I mean, they're all bloody quick. Let's be honest. But I've been really lucky to be able to measure yourself against good competition, which is something that gives me a sort of bit of peace when I look back, to think that I wasn't just turning laps and not getting anywhere. I was able to measure myself relatively well against some real good competition. So I've had that in that respect. I've been privileged to compete against these sort of people, that's really it.
When that decision was finally made that 2015 had to be your final year karting, do you remember how you felt?
Terrible
at the time.
That's instant terrible. I had no purpose. I mean, my whole purpose was to drive and to be better than the next person. Then all of a sudden that's taken away from you, and then all of a sudden you're just I felt just like a normal. I mean, I don't think anybody saw me as normal anyway. I wasn't, let's say, the cool kid at school. I think everyone, to be honest, I think people just thought I was weird, which I'm not, I would say. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, weird is better to be weird than boring, put it that way. But
exactly,
I was, let's just say I didn't fit in with or I don't think people just almost accepted me as the normal. I mean, I would be the. How'd I say? I would be
school's a tough place, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when you look back at it, you think so much of it. Like, I mean, if I'm to speak freely, I was like, when I look back at it, I was like, so much of that was just bullshit. how the school worked. It's like how
absolutely, mate.
Friends, like not friends, but how you were looked at socially and how social things work and how little it mattered. It's just crazy to look back at it. You're just like, that's so much bullshit. But yeah,
absolutely, I mean. Mate. You're punished for being yourself, aren't you?
Well, I mean, it was because in the first few years of school, I was very timid. I was very secondary school, I should say, for Scotland. Very timid, very not wanting to do anything wrong. I wouldn't say like goody two shoes level, but like I was not wanting to step on people's toes. And I think I got judged for that all the way right through. I mean, it was only really the final year of school where I got to sort of enjoy things. I was lucky that I had a close group of friends that I hung out with the entire way through school. I still speak to these people to this day, which is nice. Obviously, you don't always talk like every day, but they're always there. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy how you can just get people could if they see you for your first impression, they'll just think you're that same person for 6 years, which is just bullshit. So yeah, but it's funny how people change the way they look at you all of a sudden. I don't know whether it's towards the end of school or I don't know, you'll get messaged off of somebody maybe who is all of a sudden they think when they see you in a certain thing, they think, oh my god, like you must be this and this, and it's like, no, I'm still the same person. And that's not to say like I'm really happy to receive, let's say, messages and like things from people from school like that I got on with at the time. But I hear what I'm saying in regards to that is I hear stories of people like, oh, he's doing this and this, and there's like, yeah, but you did this and this when I was at school, so I don't forget.
You're where you are now, and you've got your kind of, you've been hugely successful in what you're doing, but also, and this is what we was saying, the podcast with Chris Medland actually a couple ago, he was saying like, it's the 5% that makes, someone like me as a YouTuber or you as an esports driver or whatever stand out, but the rest of the 95 is just normal person stuff. We still put trousers on one leg at a time, and it's like, yeah, I think that kind of perception is. I mean, I had someone a little while ago message me like who I used to go to school with, who they weren't a massive cunt, but they were like a little bit. And it was like, oh, like, can you get me tickets for the F1? Like, bruv, you're a fucking prick. Fuck off. Delete.
Yeah. That sort of thing. Like I feel like when I said
it's funny though.
Yeah,
man.
when I said that earlier, like I've received like messages from people I used to go to school with, and I was like, yeah, after last week, and I was like really happy to receive them because I got on with these people. But I absolutely know for a fact that there will be this absolute arsehole who will be out there like, oh, I went to school with him. It's like, hey, yeah, and you fucking bullied me as well. That's just the way it is. But I'm glad that the genuine people from like, you get received messages and you're happy to see it, but there's always like that one person. I think my dad says it is that they just come out of the woodwork. It's like whether people that have double crossed you or backstabbed you, they're like
100%.
all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, you've done this. It's like I don't like, piss off.
Fuck off.
Yeah. That's the way it is.
That's it, mate. They take second-hand credit.
Yeah,
it's like almost
just by
like
association.
I was part of their journey, so
what? Just because you existed in the same school or whatever? I mean, I wouldn't have been open about this a few years ago, but I was bullied probably for, I would say, at least the first 2 years of secondary school. I was bullied a bit in primary, but primary school was a little bit more childish, let's say. I don't know like how that would be. I mean, and I'm not a perfect person myself. I wouldn't, want to go out my way to, let's say, bully someone. I mean, these days, for example, I'm very, let's say, conscious of how I am and how I operate. I don't want to be negative towards someone if I don't have to be, if that makes sense, because I mean, social media is so toxic. It's absolutely vile. But I'm not trying to make myself out as a saint. I've made mistakes myself, but I mean, I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of, it's, not, I don't know, like maybe I'm in a nice position now, but it doesn't all just come from sunshine and roses. Like, there was times where you were just like, I don't know what to go to school because, you're just going to get picked on or one thing. I mean, sometimes you don't even know why. You're just like, okay. That's why I say school's so bullshit. It's just over so stupid stuff. It's incredible. And I don't really miss it. People maybe look at it as the best years of their life. I'm like, okay, I'm glad that was done. I'm so glad. I mean, I was, that chapter's more than closed for me. I just see my life as, there's a, it's only the future. The past in that regard's done.
Listen, like for me, I used to get picked on a lot first couple of years of secondary as well. There was one particular kid who took a particular disliking to me, which was, but it's one of these things where you reflect on that time, and it doesn't have to define you for the rest of your life. And again, I know a lot of kids, unfortunately, not even just kids, just a lot of people are victims of bullying. And it's one of them, especially we talk about kind of toxicity of social platforms. A lot of it, when you're hidden behind anonymity, you can lash out. When you're kind of, these people, they're clearly not in a good headspace themselves, so they take it out on other people. You could extend the same to people who bully. A lot of the kids I know used to be bullies. They didn't have very good home lives, and I think that's a big part of why that happened as well. And I suppose as you go into adulthood, you kind of reflect on these things through kind of a different view, perspective, right? Yeah, but again, it doesn't have to define you ultimately. And that long time ago, and now you're obviously here. What I also wanted to say is like around those years, obviously when you were 15 and you had to, knock the real life racing on the head, was sim racing already a significant part of your like leisure time? Like, did you have a sim set up at home?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, 2000. I mean, I got my first wheel and pedals in 2010 for like there was the Xbox Microsoft wheel, and I used that for years. Well, multiple because they broke, but I used that for a few good. I mean, I just loved F1 games and playing them. I remember just playing career mode, and I always felt like, I mean, as the years go on, you think, yeah, I'm not too terrible at this. Maybe I'm okay at this. And I mean,
were there any particular games in those years?
Well, F1, Forza Horizon, Forza Motorsport 4, legendary games. Well, I mean, I remember getting F1 2010, and at the time it being so, by far, the best sort of iteration that you'd played to that point. You were like that's just like I still remember that game.
I could make a career out of this.
Well, I mean, not at that time, no way. But yeah, I know what you mean. But, I was like, this is so cool. Years and years go by.
Yeah.
Then I mean, I was on the Xbox, and I went to PlayStation 4. Got a wheel, like the Thrustmaster T300 for that, which at the time I was like, this is such a good wheel. So like, this is so cool. Sweated F1 on that for a few years really, and then F1 Esports. I mean, this is in 2015, 16, 17. Then F1 Esports popped up, and it's like might have a try of that. And then when you see,
was that 2018? Well, that first popped up.
I saw it like happen in 2017, but I never had the sort of depth of, let's say, knowledge required to give that a serious go. Like I was still like a not casual, but like I felt like I could be quick on the F1, but I never knew enough about the game to be, let's say, top level like now. But yeah. I then saw obviously F1 Esports going to Abu Dhabi, and I was like, this looks bloody cool. And then I was like, okay, well, the next time this pops up, I want to try and qualify for it properly, like really give it a go. And I remember it. There was a qualifying event. But there was like 4, and I could only do the last one because I had my exams. So I was like, okay, well, once the exams are finished, jump on, sweat it, and try and qualify. And it was around Monaco. And I managed to qualify for it, and then you do this little race, like 10 people. You have to get in the top 3. And I was second on the grid because I had the second highest score in the event. Finished third, and then all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to London and I'm going to Silverstone for do the first ever F1 Esports Pro Draft, and that was one hell of an experience. I mean, my God, that was so much. I mean, that was a long time ago now as well. I mean, this is 2022. This is 2018. Yeah. I mean, I was still this. Man. I mean, I just finished 5th year, and I was. It was crazy to look back at that sort of stuff now. But yeah, went to Silverstone, done all the pro draft. I mean, I could go more in depth on that, but I mean, it was sort of what happened, publicly as well. It was the pro draft that we did all the stuff. Went to Silverstone, did the racing, went to the Grand Prix, then went to the Gfinity Arena, did the show. Ultimately didn't get picked because it was like 40 drivers and 16 got picked. I wasn't one of them. And at that point, I was like, even though looking back at it, I didn't have a realistic chance of being picked because nobody. I mean, I was nobody. I was in amongst at the time. It was you had the Saltunk brothers, you had Danny Berezny, you had it was Freddie Rasmussen as well. I can't remember all of it. You had Chem as well. You had so many like big names at the time, and I was like. Yeah, how did I ever think I was going to get picked against these guys? Like, nobody had a clue who I was. I was this little guy who qualified after his exams at Scotland. I was like an imposter. I was like, how on earth am I here? I felt like an imposter the whole time. But
when you look back on that, why do you actually think you didn't qualify? Do you think it was a skill thing? Do you think it was the pressure? Do you think it was because you weren't, that established name? Like, being where you are now, looking back on that, how do you... Yeah, why do you think that didn't work out?
Well, I remember there was, for example, there was these races that we do, and I got second in the first one, which was really good. I was like, oh, and I didn't really feel any pressure that time. I was just like, let's just go and do it. I mean, now these days there's always pressure. It's a skill in itself to manage it. One of the biggest skills you would need is actually pressure handling. But I remember getting second in that first race, and it was like a really good result. I was like, yeah, good. And then there was the next race, and then I got my front wing damaged at the first corner, and there was no way I was going to be able to get into the next stage. So I felt sort of robbed that I'd never had the opportunity because, I mean, I'm pretty confident I would have done quite a good job in terms of like performance, let's say, there. So I mean, I never felt like I got the chance to show every last bit. So that was obviously very damaging for the hopes, and obviously nobody really knew who I was. I was just this like random name I felt as well. So these things obviously don't help. So I didn't
because you didn't have the reputation on top of that.
I had no reputation. I was nobody.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And I don't really look at myself as an egotistical person. I mean, to this day, I hate seeing arrogance and ego. It's just fucking unnecessary. Half of the time, it's like, okay, you have this big ego, but what does that actually make you? Nobody. It doesn't change.
There's a difference between taking your craft seriously and yourself seriously. That's what
I just find seeing people's egos go through the roof really hilariously stupid sometimes. But that's just my opinion. Everyone's got a way of operating. I respect that. That's the way
we see eye to eye on that one, mate. I assure you.
But yeah, didn't get picked, and I went back to my hotel room. I think I cried my eyes out a bit. I was like, because I wanted it so much, even though now when you reflect, I was like, yeah, there was no way, but I wanted it so badly because I'd lost the opportunity to do what I loved with karting, so I was now all of a sudden, dangled this opportunity. Yeah, the carrot. I was like, wait, could I do this? And then it was like, it was made me so hungry to come back the next year and to try and win and get picked by a team. That was what I wanted. I wanted it more than anybody. It felt, and I worked that way. Like I had my final year of school, and I just every night. Basically, coming home from school, I started doing league racing, competing against the best of the best that I could, doing the best leagues. Every day, coming home from school, do whatever I need to do, then on the game. All the time, grinding, trying to learn all the niche, learn all the details, and try and prove and make a name for yourself as to why you should be picked. And that's what I did for the whole year. Came back to the next pro draft, and my mentality was I need to win to be picked. If I don't get picked, then it's just failure waiting to happen. If I don't win, it's failure waiting to happen. So I remember we had there was 3 races, so it was a maximum of 3 winners. There was 10 people in each race. There was 30 people in the draft overall. And yeah, it was like one-shot quali. I qualified like 3rd, and I wasn't really too happy with that. I was like, that was a terrible lap. Should have done this and that. But anyway. Started 3rd, got 2nd off the line, started to spit with rain, and took the lead, won by like 5 seconds, I think it was, on track. And that was it. I'd done all I could. And then it was the next day, waiting on that live show, and that is the worst experience ever, because I wanted it so badly, and I was like the 7th pick out of 10. I was like, It was like your heart, it was such a horrible feeling. Like, so horrible to be waiting on, knowing whether you've achieved your dream or not. And then I still remember my name being called out by Tom Deacon. It's number 9, Lucas Blakeley, and my reaction was very vocal. I mean, it was a 10th though. It was like what the reaction was inside. I could have went freaking ballistic. I could have lost my mind. And then that was that. I got picked in 2019. To compete in the F1 Esports Series for the first time, and then that's sort of where the esports became my full-time profession. That's the chapter point.
Absolute dedication, by the sounds of it, mate. That's the thing. Like, people see the, on the outside, you see you see the race wins, but you don't see the graft and the grind. Like when you say you were sweating, like. How long are we saying? You'd get back from school, like what kind of hours are we talking that you would put in?
As long as it took. I mean, I wanted to be the best possible. I mean, I wanted to win the league racing, and I wanted to be the best I could. So I was just grinding. I mean, that was it. I mean, it was just pure. I can't put a number on the hours, but I mean, whenever I got home from school or whenever I could, I was home, changed, on the rig, gone.
And how did your parents did they understand what you were trying to do? Because obviously they'd supported you through your karting as much as they could, and then you're going down this esport route. Did you have to kind of explain to them, look, this could be a potential career that I'm going towards. This is something bigger than just a hobby that I love. Did they get it?
I didn't need to explain to it because they first of all, they were always super supportive of anything I ever pursue, or not just myself, but my brother as well. Like the support is always there no matter what we want to do. So fundamentally, it was not really a question. It was okay, this is what I want to try and achieve, and they supported me in the best way they could. I mean, for Christmas, I believe I got like the Fanatec, which is at the time the wheel that we're using for esports, so that I could practice with the actual stuff. So I mean, again, still making sacrifices to. Still giving me what I needed, after all these years to try and chase what I wanted to do. So I mean, they've always been invested in my journey, and I owe a lot. I mean, I'll always owe a lot to them for getting to where I am. Just for supporting me and giving me things I needed to do what I needed to do. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't really difficult to convince them. I mean, we watched their F1 esports season in 2018, and we're like, hopefully next year I'll be in there, and that's how it turned out.
That's amazing, because again, it takes that support from the people around you, particularly kind of parents, when you're kind of growing up, because I think a lot of a lot wouldn't, and I think that's which is a shame, because I think you got to wonder how many other kids out there who have got a similar mindset and attitude and discipline towards it as you don't have that support around them. I think that's a super important and underappreciated thing. But again, you say about like the dedication and the hours you wanted to put in. I think that they're two different things, aren't they? Being very, very skilled at something, so you were clearly very skilled at what you're doing, but also being driven and dedicated to this extreme level that is a necessity to get to the best of any craft, whether you're an esports driver, whether you're a sprinter, whether you're a content creator, whatever you're doing in life, to get to the very top, you need that addiction almost to what you're doing. Like, when do you feel like you cultivated that? Because that, like I say, that is a very different skill to just being good at go-karting. You can be very good at go-karting, but just want to go out partying and not be asked to put the time in, whereas you have both. And where does that come from?
I suppose it's just, I mean, a lot of things at the end of the day will come down to how badly you want it, if that makes sense. I don't know, like, obviously you can want something really, really, really bad, but then on top of that, as you say, you just need perfection. I mean, for example, in last season's F1 Esports Championship, where it was 100% perfection. Like, the gaps in the field, as we saw, were stupidly close.
Yeah, it's a joke, mate.
It's honestly, like the level you needed, the level you required to win, let alone fight for a championship and win races, get the podiums, try and fight for pole. The level required to achieve that, and the sacrifice of time and hours as well, which is again, it's what people don't see, which is what ends up really being the defining factor. It's it's definitely chasing perfection, never accepting something is good enough. It's always more looking towards what can be done better, or where are we not, or where am I is not as good. Or I mean, I had this relentless perfectionism, perfectionist even the whole of last sort of year, where I wanted to try and be as best as possibly as I possibly could. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's what I tried to set myself apart as best I could. Like, I knew that there would be that one person that would be working that little bit harder, so I tried to do better than that. And I knew that this lap time would maybe not be good, but there'll be always that one guy that's that little bit quicker. So I had to go faster again and again and again, and you just repeat, rinse, repeat every day. So repetitive, unbelievably boring sometimes, but at the end of the day, the winning feeling is what makes you wanna keep grinding to get to that point. Because I mean, winning is just, it's this unbelievable feeling that, I'm 20 years old. I've still got a lot of things to experience in life, I guess, but winning is the single greatest feeling that I've ever experienced and I ever will experience to this day. I mean, it's just this unbelievable feeling of, I don't know what the word would be, but I wish you could. If I won, I wish I could share that with people. Like that feeling of, yeah. I mean, it's just something different. Like, I mean, I'm very passionate as well. Some people. I mean, there's no right or wrong way to like win as such. Put it that way. But like, some people are a little bit more reserved. But with me, I have got no hidden emotion, put it that way. I mean, I just lose my shit on the spot.
Good man.
I don't hide any of it. I remember winning my first esports race last season and I lost the plot. And I mean, you guys saw a snippet on the camera, but I lost the bloody plot completely. And that was nuts. I mean, you saw the part where I was pounding my chest, but that was after like 30 seconds of destroying my vocal cords. So, and I mean, yeah, it's it's the same. The winning feeling doesn't ever get worse. It's always what drives you forward, because that feeling is just the best thing. Or at least, I mean, I'm only, as I say, I mean, I'm only 20 years old, and I mean, racing is really my everything, if that makes sense. So, that's probably why it's one of the greatest feelings. And I mean, I've not got. I mean, I would say, in terms of the greater picture of life, I haven't. I mean, I've definitely not lived as much as I've not lived a lot of experiences, and I've not. I mean, I've not typically, like, for example, whenever in school, like, people would, go partying or whatever it would have been, like, typically speaking, I would be on a sim playing. So I mean, I don't really. I've had a very, and I wouldn't ever change that. I would never change that, because it's ultimately that's led to me being able to. If I didn't do any one of these things, I would not have had the experience I did last week, for example. And when you look at it like that, last week was much bigger than even I realised, purely because it was a culmination of effort of a lifetime, or my lifetime. And then all the sacrifices my mum and dad made. Like, if any one of these things didn't happen, then last week wouldn't have happened. It's unbelievable to think how that works.
How much value do you put on the difficult times, the struggles? Because obviously 2020 F1 esports season wasn't anywhere near, I know it wasn't anywhere near where you wanted it to be. And 2021 was just a marked improvement. Not just why do you think 2020 didn't go the way you wanted it to, but also, now looking back, do you think that was, did that teach you things that maybe you didn't anticipate it would?
Well, I mean, 2020, you would need another podcast as to why, how badly that went wrong. I mean, it was an absolute.
We could do part two.
Yeah, it's a fundamental failure of all fronts. I mean, I tried. The thing is this again. It doesn't. Not everyone sees it, but I still gave it so much effort. But in reflection, and having now more answers as to things, like, there was not really a realistic chance we were going to be able to compete with what we had. We didn't have. I mean, when I look back at it now, I mean, I know. I mean, not some of the things I won't say as such, purely because I just don't want to. I don't think it's appropriate to air here, but I wasn't happy with certain things. I wasn't happy with how certain things were done. And yeah, I mean, it was a common, and then it was just total failure. And I still worked so hard for it, but in reflection and with now knowing more things, there wasn't a chance that I would be able to fought for the championship. I knew I had deep within me, I was like, I knew I had the talent. I mean, that self-belief. I had that self-belief that I could absolutely do it. And 2021 was basically just, in a sense, it was just a bit of a fuck you to everybody that just didn't wanna, that sort of wrote me off, I guess. Because I knew exactly what I could achieve, and I wanted to prove certain people wrong. I mean, some people, when you get told certain things as to why this didn't work or that didn't work or why you were slow, I just wanted to prove that absolutely all of that was absolute fucking bullshit. Basically, I was like, no, you will absolutely realize this year as to how wrong you were. I want to prove every single thing that you said wrong. Because I mean, it's dangerous what you can give. I mean, I think I was told something very wise once by someone, that the most dangerous type of person is someone with nothing to lose. And yeah, it was all these things that people said to me, and I was told, or certain situations.
Do you think that fuels you?
Oh yeah, because I was like, these certain things, that could have ended my career. I just wanted to prove all of them wrong. I was like, you know what? I know I'm good enough. I want to win the championship. I want to win races. So I'm going to manifest all of that. Work harder than work as hard as I can, harder than anyone else that I could. Leave no stone unturned. And from the get-go, not just in F1 Esports, but then in nearly winning the V10R League Championship that I did earlier in that year as well.
Yep.
I'd feel quite unlucky that we never won that one as well, because I get taken out in both races, so it was like, couldn't do much. But, the point is the grind was still there from day dot. And I really hit a rock 2020. I mean, what people didn't see is how rock bottom I was in the end of 2020, and for a lot of the first half of 2021, it was pretty grim. I remember in January I was struggling to sleep more than maybe 6 hours a night, just purely because of the stress and the. I mean, it shows the very severe importance of mental health. Mental health is fundamentally, generally across the board, will always have incredible importance. But when you're in a performance environment, if your head isn't in the right, or if you're in let's say if the environment isn't correct, you're never going to get the best out of yourself. Even if you think you do, you're not going to get the peak. It's not possible. You need it's not. That's just not how in a team sport as well. You can't operate in that regard. So, and it's kind of. I mean, I was begging for a situation where I didn't have to feel, I didn't have to feel like that again. And I worked so hard to make bloody sure that I would never experience these sort of things again. So bloody hard. Like I was ruthlessly. I refused to ever have that same situation again. And all of these things, plus my general drive and fundamental principles of how I work and how I operate, all of these things combined as to how I've gotten to this point. And the thing is, it's no use for me to get to this point now and then just flatline. My aim is to keep rising. I can't stop. But if I stop now, then it was all for nothing. What's the point in getting to a certain point and missing the potential? And I mean, I mean, people would maybe think in this situation that, I don't know, like you can sort of sit back, relax, you don't need to think about it. I take nothing from a lot of these things. I take probably too little from these things. I'm always thinking, I need to be better. I'm not good enough here. I'm not happy unless I'm either driving 100% perfection or there is more to be achieved. And I feel like that attitude is really an F1 esports attitude, because that's what you need.
It's a necessary attitude.
Yeah, if you're not willing to go for that next 10th, then don't be surprised when you're out in Q2 or Q1. And going out in Q1 isn't even a bad thing in F1 esports these days, because the freaking lap times, you could have half a 10th mistake in a corner, you're gone. And it's not even because you did a bad job, it's just because of how close it is. And that's a thing I've said a few times, I think on Twitch as well, is don't talk shit. I mean, people are far too fucking critical on F1 esports drivers. They have one bad event or one bad race, and all of a sudden recency bias kicks in, and it's like, oh, they're washed. It's like, no, fuck off and try and do what we do every single race under the same pressure. That's why I'm very. I mean, and I've been there. I've been at the rock bottom. I've been where it's terrible. So when I see somebody do well, I try my very best not to, be super critical on it, because I know how bloody easy it is to drop down, on how easy it is to lose that little bit. What you can obviously, what is different from that is obviously when there's a lack of work ethic or a lack of approach, or these are different things. But when it comes to the gaps in the performance, and when people criticising esports drivers, when I listen to certain things or when I hear people say certain things, you guys do you want to try and do it for us if it was that easy as you make it sound? When the whole field's separated by less than 2/10.
I think that is in part because the F1 game, the base game that you're playing, is such an accessible product. It's something that anyone can buy the game and have a go. It's almost the same as, like, people will always criticize people who work in social media, like social media managers, because they're like, oh, they just post on Twitter. Like, there's no appreciation just because you can do it yourself. Like, yes, you can download the F1 2021 game and play it now if you want, right? You can do that, crack on, all right? But to operate at the top end of that, you don't see these criticisms of, like, brain surgeons, because you can't just, I'm just going to do some casual brain surgery today. Like, the accessibility of something, I think, makes it,
very
you do
broad,
get
very generalized.
Yeah, people who can't give the credit where it is due, and you lot are operating at just an absolutely, like you're operating at a level which we don't see in a level of close proximity that we don't see in most, even like spec series motorsports, because the amount of time you can put in, you can't just go to a track and do practice laps for 8 hours in the afternoon. Like, you can put so much time, and the level, it's almost, it's like the dream. It's like the ultimate meritocracy of ability, where you lot are just putting, and the margins are so fine because you are the 20 best drivers in the world at the game. It's crazy.
It's a lot of it is down to that, and it's like, for example, I mean, a lot you see posts on Twitter of people posting lap times that were maybe faster than the pole time of F1 esports. I was like, let's post our PBs, see what happens. Could you imagine if everyone did that? Because then it flips it back on the other end when they're like, wait, I'm a few tenths off now. It's like, because pressure exists. It's unbelievable. Like, people, I think obviously there's an element of social media to do that as well. Like, people are trying to. You can respect the game, you can understand it, but you've got to be very careful with how you play that line, because if it gets to a point of, you can understand people trying to further their career, and that's respectable because it's something that we've all done in the past as well. But you've got to be very careful with how you put the context, because it's a fine line between showing something and then criticizing someone else in doing so.
Trying to drag someone else down to elevate yourself is never
100%.
And there's far too much of that on social. How when did you first? Would you say it was 2019 when you first got into the F1 kind of esports pro series? Like, was that when your social media presence first started to kind of go up, or did you already have a bit of a following before that?
To be honest, my social media presence has been, until I feel almost semi-uncomfortable about it, because I don't want to talk. Again, I'm very, like, when it comes to, like, ego and arrogance and things like that, I'm, like, almost on I try almost to be on the opposite scale, where I'm very, like, I literally want to have 0%, or like a very small percentage of it, because I just see people with blatant ego and arrogance, and I hate it so much, and I'm like, I want to be the opposite of that. Like, that's just horrible. So point is, though, when it comes to
Humble
social,
king.
I try to, though. I genuinely mean it. Like, I mean, and it's very hard to portray it because people don't think it's genuine as well. Like, I hate. I mean, I try so hard to be so level and neutral, and I don't try and force it. I just do not want to be arrogant or egotistical. I fundamentally just don't want to be that person. That's just my choice. But anyway, but in terms of social media, if we're talking about presence, I had a very in regards to, let's say now, where I mean, after the last week, it was fucking mental. Like my phone has never done what it did that last week. Let's put it that way. So if we're looking versus now on all my platforms to before, it was nothing. Like 2019, it was tiny. 2020, it was mostly tiny. 2021 was the year where I'd say my platforms, whether it was Twitter, Instagram, or Twitch. Twitch is the biggest one, but that was a lot. I put a lot of time into that as well. So that was the year where things then just sort of went and boom. Like you hit an exponential curve. Like you people don't see how long you grind. It took 6 months of pure grind to finally maybe have that little break on Twitch, and I put so many hours into it. I mean, it's just so many. It's just like, and once it takes off, that exponential curve does not stop going up. And it's crazy. And I mean, I don't even on Twitch, for example, I don't stream because I mean, I know, for example, let's say I did league racing right now. Fundamentally, right now, I don't want to. I don't think I'm going to be able to soon at the moment, for reasons, but that's not important. It's nothing like thingy, but I don't want to do it fundamentally because last year took so much out of me mentally, and I've not got any desire to jump back on and race the F1 game at the moment. I'll play it casually, I'll stream it, but I have no desire to do that at the moment. That's not an interest for myself. Plus, I've got other things that, if they do happen, will be really fucking cool that, I think maybe people would understand as to why I'm not really too bothered about doing that at the moment. But I do want to do it, just not now. But I know if I did stream league racing, it would be very, very good for Twitch because people like it and it's good content. And, if you're to look at it, maybe let's say from a viewership standpoint, it's a great opportunity. And that's a number one ticket to, having a good growth. But I fundamentally don't want to do it because at that point, I'm bordering on the line of I'm not doing it because I enjoy it. I'm doing it because I want to gain a growth. And if I wanted to do that, then equally that's still fair game. But I don't want to do it. To me, it's more important for me to take a break and enjoy myself and stream, still have fun, still do things, but not do something that I would have to practice for and like grind. That is, we do that for so much of the year that why would I want to do that when I've got free time? Well, I mean, I've now got free time. I didn't a while ago, but why would I want to do that? To me, it makes no sense.
Yourself out, wouldn't you?
I mean, still even now, there's still elements of not burnout, but it's very easy to get bored of something very quickly or to lose motivation. That's why you need to really focus on recharging as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I don't do that at the moment, even though I know it would be very promising for Twitch and it would excel. If I did that now, the growth would probably be maybe, it's a good potential, but I'm not doing it. Because
if you're thinking from like a business point of view.
Yeah, from a business point of view, it would make 1,000,000% sense to do it all the time, as many races you want, but I would be miserable. So why would I do that? So, I mean, I hope people, I say miserable maybe as an exaggeration, but I would have to practice for these league races because I mean I'm not going to do the league races and want to do shit. I want to win. I hate losing so badly. Even though they're for sort of fun, I don't like turning up to something because people judge you so much. It's incredible. If I do an open lobby, or a my team race and you don't drive well, or if you just fuck about, or that's because what you want to do. You want to have fun. People are like, "Why are you using flashbacks?" And it's like, "Because I want to deal with it." Yeah, but seriously, like people are so you drifting
an F2 car around Monaco.
I mean that's fun though.
Why are you drifting?
I know.
Why aren't you taking the optimal line?
I know, but like people have this really wrong and warped perception of how, like, if every minute of our existence on driving was to do it to our best of our ability, that's in a competitive environment, yes. But if we have to do this, that's like me saying to a random league racer, like, on Twitch, why are you not giving it 100%? Why are you in a voice call? I mean, this is not aimed at anyone, by the way. This is like just generalizing. But why are you having a joke? You need to be focused. You need 100%. If you're going to play that game, then you're going to twist it to a severely unhealthy place. People really need to take a step back and think, relax their standards a little bit sometimes, because we're people.
How do you deal with all this? Because obviously, I've gone through, like my channel 2 years ago was a fraction of, it was just at the start now, didn't really have much of a following at all. You said it yourself, kind of from 2020 to 2021, your profile has increased in terms of the amount of people aware of what you do and following you. It's not easy at times, handling all of the opinions and all of the, people who will make sweeping judgments on you as a person based off one tiny caveat and aspect of your life. How have you found that, mate, you're only 20 years old. Like I've come into this, I came into this when I was 27, 28, I'm 29 now. I feel like I've got a bit of, I've had a lot of life experience. I've worked a lot of different jobs. I've kind of, my growth, as much as it's been quick, it's also been gradual because I've been doing YouTube for a long time and I'm very aware of the landscape, and I feel like I'm in a better place than a lot of people to kind of deal with it. But how have you kind of handled all of this expectation and all these voices? Because people say it's just words on a screen, but
that's the worst counter argument I've ever heard, to be honest.
It's not.
But yeah, I mean, I don't really think so much of the expectation. I see it also as a privilege to have people that want to. I mean, if it's on Twitch, for example, I'm privileged that people want to watch me, and I try and thank people and be gracious, and
it's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
I try my best to be grateful for these things. I would say that's the biggest thing. I'm really grateful for these things first and foremost, but there's always going to be that minority of things where people are just arseholes, and I would say. Fundamentally, if you're to look at Formula One, let's look at Charles Leclerc. That's a good example. Everybody loved the kid in 2018, like an underdog, 2018. Yes, 2018. And the Sauber punching out incredible results. Everyone's like, oh, Charles Leclerc, what a guy. Can't wait to see him on a Ferrari. Then the minute he starts to get successful, more and more people start to hate him. And he's not. I don't think he's done anything to deserve that, But point is, more and more success brings hate. The most. Okay, now people are gonna. I'm a massive Lewis Hamilton fan. I'm just gonna put that out there fundamentally, because people, no matter what you say, the minute you mention the word Hamilton or Verstappen, people just write your opinions into this thing, category. But exactly, I know. But okay, but let's look at Lewis Hamilton. He's the biggest guy in the sport, and he's easily, and this is just, I don't know if this is I'm not sure if this is opinion or facts, right? But easily the most hated. Easily, and that's just my opinion. I don't know if that's factual, but he is loved or hated. He's popular, but he has so many people that hate the guy.
He is the most publicly hated F1 driver of all time, because you've got to remember that, yes, people hated Schumacher when he was dominating. Yes, people hated Vettel.
There was no social media.
But social media wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So people would talk about these, but they would never be put out into the public ecosphere. Now it's 2022 and everything's, there's receipts everywhere of what people say and do, and
there's no. The cancel culture as well these days. Like, you can do nothing genuinely wrong, but someone could twist it or invent something, and then all of a sudden your name's dragged.
Of course.
And in a sense, it's crazy. But talking about Charles Leclerc again, 2019, 2020, then in 2021, he had a great year. He got really unlucky in certain respects, and now people are calling him washed against Carlos Sainz because he lost in the champ. It's like, do you have an idea how
he finished fourth 6 times?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Charles Leclerc, in terms of raw talent, you could argue he's you've got Hamilton, Verstappen. We're going to see George Russell this year. I don't know. We're going to see that peak, but Charles Leclerc, I would put on that level of pure.
I agree.
It's the raw speed of this guy is crazy, genuinely crazy. And then you've got people Sainz beat him. But yeah, and don't get me wrong, Sainz is phenomenal as well. I rate him very highly as a race driver. But people calling Charles completely mudded because of one thing, that is the most recency bias thing you could use as an example. If you want to show recency bias, that that is horse, like that is ridiculous. And it's just a point, like success brings hate. And even though if you don't do anything, people will always believe what they want to believe, see what they want to see, hear what they want to hear. That list goes on. People will genuinely want that. That's the way it is. Like, you can present something as plain as day to someone, but if it doesn't fit their agenda, it doesn't fucking matter to them. And it's just, and that applies to everything. So, like, when you see opinions, I mean, a lot of things are what they are. Opinions, they are exactly that. It's such a crazy time we live in, and social media by the moment seems to get really, really toxic, and more and more toxic. Sorry. So it's very like trying to, I don't know, it's like trying to find the good in the platform where you can and enjoy the positive sides, because there are positive sides and there's really good things about.
Absolutely,
there are really good things about people, social media, whether that's people being more, people being free to be themselves. That is 100% a great thing. Happiness is so underappreciated, I think, and everyone deserves to be happy. And if social media and people are getting in the way of other people's happiness, then that's just because they want to be in a certain way, or just hide behind the screen, because what people realize with social media more and more is there is absolutely zero consequences for what they say or do. Like, if they are not going to say 100%. What they say on a tweet to you in person, why the fuck are you tweeting it? Because you can get away with it. It's so wrong, but that's just the way life is. They play that game, they play that system. That's just the way it is. But there are really genuinely nice things about social media, about people sharing great experiences, feeling free to share their love of certain things with other people, and just being themselves. That's fucking brilliant. But it's just a shame that other people, that there's this group of people that just decide to ruin that.
I think that the problem is, it's we as human beings are hardwired. The reason we'll see 10 positive comments, we see one bad one, you focus on the bad one. Yep. That is a very human reaction. We are designed, that's how we're built, because through 99.99999% of human existence, Twitter didn't exist. The internet didn't exist. So there was, your interactions would only be directly with one-to-one with people. Yep. All of a sudden, you've got this massive kind of, everything's put out into this massive kind of ecosphere of tweets and opinions and that. And now, this is what I try and, I'm trying to remind myself more this year, is like 98% of the stuff, the comments that I get and the interactions I have, and I'm sure it's exactly the same for you, is overwhelmingly positive. Yep. And it's that small percent which, taints it's almost like we've got to reprogram ourselves when we're on social media to almost look at these things consciously, be like, no, this is social media. Like, you got to do the numbers game here and be like, actually, the overwhelming majority is positive. Again, hiding behind anonymity, it all just breeds, and I feel sorry for these people. I genuinely feel sorry for these people who, feel like they want to spend their time, being a cunt on the internet. Like, that could never be someone who's coming from a happy and healthy place. So I think that's the distinction we need to, as anyone. Like, you don't have to be someone with loads of followers. You can just, anyone who conducts himself online. People will interpret what you say based on their perception of what you said, not what you actually meant. Words are just a vessel for conveying what your intent is. Yeah. That's all words do, and people can interpret words in different ways, and they can choose to be like, oh, you're praising this driver, which means you're anti this driver. It's like, no, that's not what that means. You fucking idiot.
That's the fault. That's such a big issue. I mean, Hamilton and Verstappen fans can't seem to coexist.
Oh, mate, honestly, both of them do my fucking head in.
And this
honestly,
is the thing. Like, everybody acts as if they're on the right side, or we are not as bad as the other side. No, you're both as bad as each other.
The extremes of either are both twats.
Exactly.
Okay?
Like, put it this way, right? It was the off season. The drivers were away doing their own thing. I mean, Lewis Hamilton literally didn't go on social media. and yet people are still shit talking and bickering. Blame yourselves for the solution, the problems. Don't blame other people. You like this is the way it is. I mean, it's people are a product of. I mean, you were talking about people are a product of their environment. That's just the way it is. Like that. And when you see the more negativity there is, the more there will be. It's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Like, and as you say, that one, all it takes is one little comment, and we do need to hardwire our brains a bit, like forcefully, like think, you know what? No, that's one person. Doesn't matter. Focus on the positives, and it's the same. And I know that's 100% true, because it's the same for like if you're doing a competition. Like if you do a great, do one shit thing wrong, I'm fucking terrible. Like you're the perfectionist mindset. Like it's the same principle. It applies to so many different areas broadly in life. And these are all, that's all relevant.
Absolutely, mate. It's the jungle that we have to navigate on social media. But Lucas, look, we've got an hour 20 in, and we've not really talked about the most exciting thing. I'm sure it's been a whirlwind for you, mate. Look, listen, I'll just leave the floor to you just to talk about what happened last weekend at e-ROC and how the day kind of ended with you racing against a 4-time F1 world champion in real life and beating him.
So yeah, I mean, you need to really just go through the whole week, because it was one of the greatest experiences. It was going to the Race of Champions. It will be one of the best experiences I ever get to do in my life. I would love to go back in the future, but I'll need to work my arse off to try and get back there again. But because I don't automatically qualify through, so I need to, I just got to keep grinding to get the opportunity again. But yeah, the whole week was just so good. I haven't seen, for example, Jarno and James. I haven't seen either of them since I think maybe 2019. So it was good to catch up with them. I mean, we all had such a great time, such a great week. The 4 drivers, Martin, who was the Swedish entry for the e-ROC, he was such a cool guy as well. A shout out to him as well. But there was it was sort of like Team e-ROC. You had everyone there for you had the drivers, you had and everyone that also came along. You had, it was like this really nice group of us all. And we had dinner, we had drinks, we had chats. It was just such a great time, just generally through the whole thing. And everyone really wanted everyone else to do well. I mean, it sucked so much that in the end, we'll get to this point, it sucked so much in the end that out of the 4 of us, only 2 of us got to do the Nations Cup. That really sucked, because every single one of them, everyone deserved it. It really hurt to, not be able to share it with these guys. But they were, we'll get to that point. But I mean, so at the beginning of the week, we arrived on the Monday, had like no sleep, so tired, and we were all just having dinner, talking, and then sort of discussing the plan. Then the next morning, we were on the Tuesday, we were driving Porsches, I believe. So
that was the Cayman GT4.
Yeah,
right?
I believe. No, that was after. So basically,
cool.
We went in these Porsche 911s to a ginormous frozen lake. Nice. And it was so funny because I was in with Jarno was driving the Porsche over, and I was in the passenger seat with him. And it's the minute we go on the ice, and it's like, imagine what happens if the ice breaks now. It's like, dude, we went on a bloody frozen lake. Why would you say that? It's the first thing he said.
Now it's in there.
Yeah, it's like it's just like this. The minute, imagine what would happen if this broke now. It's like, dude. But honestly, that is one of many hilarious moments that everybody had. But yeah, then we arrived to this like slalom course, where like you slalom your way, do a long drift, and a slalom your way back. It was like a U shape. And now this is like for me going into it from a personal standpoint, the only real life experience I've had driving an actual car. Out with driving experiences, because let's be honest, they really don't count. Like they're not remotely of the same help. I drove a BMW M3 around Silverstone for 20 minutes in January 2019. That's my lot. That's all I had. So, I mean, obviously I have my driver's license, I've drove my car, but like that, again, you're not driving a car like that on the road. So, again, useless. So, I went into this feeling like I started from zero. So yeah, just every run trying to learn, do the slalom. Started off like I was being so aggressive. I mean, on snow and ice, you have no grip, and it was 4-wheel drive. So like trying to learn so many things I had to learn from zero. Like all these things that you would wish you'd maybe learned before. And I mean, I could go on with a huge list of things that you would need to fundamentally understand, build the memory of. But all these things that you would have liked to have learned before, you were learning all at once. But by the end of it, the slalom was starting to get okay, and then there was this there was also this longer. It was like a track. It was like an ice track, like an actual circuit, with really long, sweeping, fast bends that you could really drift. And we did that as well. Like we had James and Martin in one 911, and then it was Jarno and myself. We were swapping drivers, like doing that car. So I'll tell you what, Jarno's fucking unbelievable. And I mean, I didn't get to go in with the other two, but I mean, even just watching Jarno drive, because he's got some, I think he's done some real racing before, I believe with Formula Renault as well. Even watching him drive, you can learn so much. It's incredible. Like it was really, really impressive as well. I mean, he just knows what he knew what he was doing from the get-go, so it was really impressive. And I learned a lot just from being in the passenger seat and trying to. But it's not easy because you watch it in the passenger seat, then you try and do it, and it's like what the you try and learn. With hindsight alone, I think I would go back and do a lot better as well. That's the painful part because you're like, but yeah, we did this long ice track, and then we I think that was it for the day. And then the next day, we went on the simulators to do some practice, do some warm up, and then we did some practice in the actual Racer Champions track. So we went back to the actual track, and except this time there's no room for mistakes. You could make a mistake in the ice lake and you're just off into snow. If you hit the wall, it's ice. There's a bit of snow, then it's ice. You can't make a mistake. And we were driving the Polaris, which was like this 4-wheel drive buggy. So we're doing practice in that, doing laps and laps and laps.
That Polaris looks so sick.
It was nuts. I mean, it's so this little thing that weighs so little, really soft, so there's a lot of lurch and diving, and 180 horsepower on something that weighs like that. Hilarious. No gears, just pure drive.
Amazing.
But unfortunately for me, like we were doing the practice in that because we had an assessment lap that we were obviously going to get judged on for the e-ROC competition. That you could get scored up to a maximum of 12 points. So you had the e-ROC side of it. So you had that one lap to nail it. But the Polaris is meant to be 4-wheel drive. All of my practice laps, for some reason, it was in rear-wheel drive. And I didn't know any better, which feels really dumb. But all of my practice laps were in rear-wheel drive. And I came in, the guy from Polaris like, were you in rear-wheel drive? And I'm like, what do you mean? So I'm like, fuck.
You don't know the difference.
Yeah, but I mean,
you've not...
I then realised it. I was like, oh my God, I wasn't in 4-wheel drive, because then you remember certain things and you don't think about it, you just drive. So I was like, oh God. And it sounds really dumb, how do you not know the difference? But like when you've never driven a car before, it's not your first thing that comes to your mind. So
yeah, on ice as well. Like...
my first lap, but the assessment lap I did was the first time I drove the 4-wheel drive. So I was like learning so much. And I mean, there was still a lot of things in hindsight you could do a lot better, but like the aim was just to do a clean, solid lap, no mistakes, just get a time on the board and show that you can actually fundamentally drive. So I did the assessment lap. We all did the assessment lap. And then the next day it was the e-ROC competition, where basically you can get a maximum of 12 points on the sim and 12 points on the assessment lap. And the idea is the top 2 out of the 4 that had the most points would then, those 2 would represent e-ROC in the Nations Cup of the actual Race of Champions, which is nuts. Like, it's a crazy opportunity. So on the sit, and you get like 2 points. You raced every driver twice, like, so you raced like the 3 others twice, and if you won, you get 2 points. You lost, you get 1. I scored 11 out of 12 on the sim, and I got by the judges, like, it was live on the show. I had Oliver Solberg, Peter Solberg, and Terry Grant, and I was absolutely speechless. But they gave me 12 out of 12, and I believe the lap was. I mean, the way I view it is it was equal because it was. I had the fastest lap by 200s to Jarno. Which I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't. Let's not going to make the world of difference, you know. So like, I just feel grateful I was able to just put a lap on the board. So I was like, wow, that's good. And then that's good. I'll take it.
That's pretty good, Lucas. Pretty good, mate. Not bad.
Then it was the final against Jarno for e-ROC, and this is where I failed. This is the biggest fuck up I made in quite a long time because I had. And I'm not saying this out of arrogance, but I was the fastest on, I think, the sim generally. Not by much, but I think, especially in the Porsche that we drove for the final, I had a really good pace advantage. So it was it was mine to lose. And it was 2 races, and it was aggregate time that won. And I was doing really well in the first race, and then I fucked it completely. I lost, I don't know how much time in the first race by missing the apex, having to change gears, and it was a mess. And I lost by like a few hundreds. So round 1 to Jarno, fucked it up. But if I'd won the next race by a good margin, I would still win e-ROC. So the race starts, I make the same silly small mistake again, but not as bad in the same corner that I did. And then on the split, the way it works out is I had 1 second advantage on Jarno after the first lap. Like, it was a really clean run, I guess. I don't know. I had a second by the split. And it was like, and I didn't know this at the time, but all I had to do was not shunt, not make a mistake, and I would have won the e-ROC. And what did I do? I lose the rear end and lose what must have been over a second, just. And I didn't realise how much time I lost, but it was a big, big mistake. And it wasn't even something, I didn't feel like I was going to make a mistake, but at the same time, I shouldn't have allowed it to happen. I should have been taking it a different approach. And it's I'm very, very critical on myself as well. So it was a big fuck up from me. And Jarno won the e-ROC. And at the end of the day, the thing I maintain to this day, and the thing that I told Jarno after, is like, the best man won, because I don't think I deserved to win e-ROC because I didn't drive well enough to deserve it. Jarno clutched up, made me pay the price for me making mistakes, and that's the way racing should be. He was the better driver on that day, because it doesn't matter if you have more pace in practice. He clutched up, he didn't make mistakes, and I did. And I know if I didn't make these mistakes, I would have most likely won the e-ROC championship for that. And that's my own fault. I own that mistake, because making mistakes isn't a bad thing. You learn. It makes you a better driver, makes you a better character.
Absolutely.
It was a monumentally big mistake. Don't get me wrong. It cost me a lot in the grand scheme of things. But at the end of the day, that's my own fault. If I didn't want
What's done is done.
Yeah, exactly. You can't change it. Obviously, it really hurt. I was like, was so like, because this was usually an environment where I would have clutched up and done well, but it wasn't anything to do with pressure. Like, it was just purely silly mistakes. I did not need I was pushing in a way I didn't need to drive. I was just not doing the right approach, and I've learned from that. That was my mistake. And he's a great guy as well. I mean, and that goes for all of the e-ROC guys. Like, all of the guys from e-ROC. I mean, I've sent them all a message, but I just have so much respect for them, because I mean, they're all great people. They all deserve the best. They're all. I had such a good week spending time with them. So many memories I will enjoy for the rest of my life. I had such a great time there, and I really thank them all for it. So I mean, if they ever see this clip, I just want them to know how bloody grateful I am for that week. It was such an amazing experience, and I hope it won't be the last time we all have some fun like that.
I'm sure it won't.
It was great.
I'm sure it won't.
And honestly, one of the best weeks of my life, just on that alone, just being able to spend so much time with some really good people. That's all I can, that was such a good time in that alone. But anyway, back to e-ROC, I guess. So Jarno won and I was second, but that meant we were teaming up to race in the Nations Cup. And coming back again to the respect, everybody was helping. Like, everyone in e-ROC was like, right, like, don't think about this. We were all one team. We were all just trying our best. Because the night before, I remember sitting talking to James, and I was like, James was just like, go out there and just do your best for the guy that doesn't have the budget, and just go out there and represent. We all just wanted to
Mate, what a legend.
We all
Love
just
that.
wanted to represent sim racing as best as we could, because we knew going into it, Mick Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel, fuck, like these guys are nuts. The thing is, we never went in thinking 100% off, we're fucked, we're never going to win. We went in thinking, anything's possible, and we need to try our best. Because if you think you're going to lose, you're going to bloody lose.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point in turning up if you think you're going to lose? Because that's not going to win you anything, right? So we just did what we could. So basically, we're now on race day, Saturday, Nations Cup. And we, because of the weather the day before, we had not even practiced the cars we're going to race. We needed to practice in the RXE, which is the electric rallycross we drove, and the Porsche, which is rear-wheel drive and unbelievably hard to drive in the snow. Crazy, no grip. Well, there's no grip anyway, but this was especially a low grip. But
I heard that was the particular.
It was horrible. Like, it was fun, but it was horrible because you had no control. So much understeer, and it was crazy. But basically, the weather the night before as well meant that half the track was flooded. So we had a shortened version of the track. And originally the plan for practice, because remember, we had not practiced the cars. Apart from the Polaris, we had not practiced in the cars we were going to drive for that day. So we turned up on the morning having not driven the cars yet. Whereas I think some of the other race drivers as well were doing the practice through the day. So we were like, fuck, we need practice. We were like, we're going into this trying to represent sim racing as well as we can, and we're like, we have no practice. Like, come on, we need practice. But basically, we were meant to get 3 laps of practice on the big track in all 3 cars. So the Rallycross, the RXE, the electric one, and the Porsche. We got 2 laps of the shortened version in just the RXE and the Porsche. That was it. That's all we had. Before the race, the first race I did was against Sebastian Vettel, and that was in the Rallycross car. I had drove it for 2 laps.
Who's that? I've never heard of.
But I had 2 laps practice in that car. I had to go from 0 to 100.
Mate,
I had 2 laps practice.
Absolutely mad.
That was it. I had nothing.
I can't believe
I was like, I'm just gonna send it. I don't know what to do. Like, I just had there wasn't nerves. It was just anticipation. I was like, I am about to race Sebastian Vettel. I'm about to race representing everybody from sim racing, and I wanted to go out there and do the best job I could for yourself, everything that had led you to this point in your whole life. You wanted to represent sim racing. You just didn't want to be destroyed. And I remember lining up in the grid. I looked to my right, and it's just that helmet, that white and German striped helmet. You're just like, fuck, you're about to race Sebastian Vettel, like crazy. And apologies for the language as well, because I mean, this is
probably
good stuff. But, like, I was like, you're about you at that point, that all fades away, and then you get to the sign ready to race, and then you're just waiting for the green light. And at this point, your heart's like it's the most insane thing you're about to do in your life. Then the lights are green, and all of a sudden you're just going for it. So you're in. I mean, I remember the first 2 corners were quite clean. It's really easy to understeer in this car. You need to use the handbrake so much. Like, I'd never used a handbrake before I got into this car in my life, so it's like just learning as you go. And it's like it's not on or off. It's progressive. So it's just like trying to get the best modulation. There was no gears in the electric car, so you could just focus on the driving. First 2 corners were all right. Turn 3 was okay. And then the camera cuts to me on the broadcast that everybody saw. And I am all over the place. I was so messy. But I was messy, but I was committed. I carried as much as I could. In hindsight, you look at it as like, I should have used the handbrake here. Or I didn't make the apex of 2 corners, like the hairpin in the corner before. I was really wide, but I still carried speed. So I tried what I could. But then after that hairpin, I think I genuinely nailed it. Like, it was like, I just pushed, and I just like tried to, like, I didn't over push, but I just went to the limit, just getting on the bridge. And then this car's got 330 horsepower, and it's all electric, instant torque. So coming down the bridge, I was just like, fuck it, pin. You're just like, and it just keeps whining, and you're just going so fast. This thing's rapid, so you're just like, go, wait, don't brake. now brake as hard as you can, and then you see there's actually a clip I uploaded, but you can see I'm literally pointing the other way on entry. Scandinavian flick, like you turn the other way and then you flick it in. So I was like, stop, handbrake, get it the other way. And at this point, I knew the speed was coming. I started to get a bit more confident because I had no practice. I had to build it and just go. And then you come up to the final hairpin, and then it's just pull the handbrake as hard as you can, get the nose in. And I got the nose in, and then I knew I just like get the run to the line, and then I was powering on the throttle, went a bit. Well, I mean, coming out the last corner, I was like, wait, is Seb crossed the line yet? And then I just see him at the top of the hill. And I'm like, go. Like, and then if you see the clip that I think I uploaded, I'm in the wall. I came out the corner too wide, and the rear of my car is in the snow. Like, I'm a few centimetres off of completely shunting it in the wall. But I didn't care at this point. I was like, Seb's right there. I'm going for the line. I'm like, I don't know if I was screaming in the car. I have no idea. I was like, go. And then I'm like all over the place coming to the line. I cross the line, and I have no idea who won. I had no idea who won. I crossed the line. It
doesn't come up anywhere in the car.
I slammed on the brakes, and I was like, fuck. Did I just win? I was like, did I just win? I had no clue. I was absolutely my heart was racing. I was breathing like absolutely like did I win? Because I knew it was close. I was like that in itself. I was like holy, like losing my shit in the car. No idea what had happened, and I didn't know I'd won until I got back to the pits. But coming back round, everybody was like cheering and clapping, and I was like, are they cheering because it's close, or are they cheering because I won? I do not know what just happened. I didn't see any screens. I don't know who won. Then I pull back up in the pits. You had the whole grandstand just like cheering, and it's like one of the most surreal experiences of my life, having that many people just clapping and cheering. And I was like, I don't know what they're cheering for. I was just like so confused. And then I'm coming back into I park the car, and I'm like absolutely like losing my mind. And then I asked the first guy I saw, I came out, he's like, who won the race? And originally the first guy said, second by 800s. And I'm like, no! Because I was like, I thought I lost. And then Terry Grant walks up to me and just went, you just beat Sebastian Vettel. And I'm like, what do you mean? That guy just said second. He's like, you just beat Sebastian Vettel. And I'm like, and I was speechless. I was like, this isn't possible. This is just not what happens to guys like me. You know, like this isn't meant to happen. I was like, this is not real. It's, to this day, it doesn't feel real. I've watched the video 100 times. It doesn't feel like it actually happened. And I've lived the experience, and it doesn't feel like it happened. It seems so impossible to happen. It just doesn't feel real. And I come in the pits, and I was like, it was unbelievable. I just couldn't believe it. And then I was into the next race with Mick. And I was like trying to do well there, but this is where the lack of experience kicks in, because I've drove the Polaris more than any other car, but I didn't drive it on that layout, and I didn't drive it for like 2 days. So like again, it's like I didn't have the ability just to jump in and drag the hell out of it. I needed a warm up, and I didn't have a warm up because I didn't drive it until that day, and I got destroyed by Mick by like 3.6 seconds. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I genuinely think that on a day where I'd maybe drove the car on the same day, and I made a big mistake in the last corner as well. So if I add these things up, I genuinely think I would have been, at very worst case, 1 to 2 seconds. I would not have won. Mick was fucking crazy quick in that Polaris, like unbelievable. But the 3.6 seconds was a bit annoying, because I went from the high of just winning to then getting destroyed. And I was like, well, I gave it a good go, but I didn't have the fundamental. I mean, I just couldn't adapt, and I needed to push harder. I was in the Polaris. I mean, no, in the Rallycross car, I was like just learning how to get that car. But then in the Polaris, you can be so aggressive. Like, you can brake super late, dart the car. It's so light. And I didn't do any of these things, and I was just slow. I just didn't push it hard enough. And if I did that, not make the mistake, it would have been closer. I would never have won, though. Or never say never, but like, you know what I mean? It was very, very unlikely I would have won that race. Mick was crazy fast. So, you know, these are things that I learned with reflection. But, I mean, and obviously, sadly, we get knocked out as well because Germany went through. And I mean, Jarno did really well as well. I mean, let's not forget, like, he really pushed it to the limit as well. I mean, I think he went. I don't know. I can't remember if he said he went into like a snowbank at some point, but he was.
Yeah,
He
he did.
I know how good Jarno was because I was in that. I
Prime.
was in the Porsche with him, and he's very skillful. So like, don't forget how well he done as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, we both just went out there to represent sim racing, to represent, you know, in a sense, to represent sim racing, to try and represent the guys that, I don't know, like, don't have the budget, or just try and represent that we are not useless, and that we can, if the things are right, do what we can. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful, very, very. I mean, I wished Mick good luck for the remainder of the tournament as well. I spoke to Mick a little bit, and then I didn't get the chance till a bit later, but I got to speak to Sebastian. And I mean, the guy that everyone loves on social media, like, he is the same guy. He's such a genuinely good, nice person. You know, I got the chance to speak to him. I just, you know, congratulated him on, you know, getting through to, you know, beating us earlier in the nations. And this was while he was waiting to go in a passenger lap. He's just like so excited to get in as a passenger. So he was just waiting, and I thought, like, go up and speak to him now. And I just said, look, I just wish you the best of luck for, you know, the rest of for tomorrow's races. I mean, he finished second as well. He did a great job, Seb. Like, he absolutely nailed it the next day. So I was like, just, you know, best of luck for the future races. And yeah, I mean, and I think he was like, it was close. I think you beat me by, like, I don't know. I cannot remember exactly what you said, because it's like a bit of a blur when you're talking to a full-time world champion. But you know, because your brain just goes. But I think it was like, it was close earlier, and I mean, I think I said. And in hindsight, I mean, like, why did I say that? But in the moment, I was like, I don't know if I got a little bit lucky or not. But it's like, I mean, my lap was clean, so, you know, I think you know, I think you know, it done well. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was really nice. And as I was just like, best of luck, enjoy. In passenger lap, and we just had a fist bump, and yeah, I mean, but he's a great guy, Sebastian. He is genuinely really nice. And one thing I'm disappointed by is how people used that race to then slander Seb, because that's just not the fucking point. Like, Seb came second in the whole competition, and yet you're trying to slander him. And that's not the purpose of what our race was. You know, why use that to try and slander Seb? It's just disrespectful to absolutely everybody.
Mate, listen, look, you're going to get those voices, you're going to get those, but you can't let that detract from the overwhelming positivity towards the way you conducted yourself, the way it all went down.
I just try and be the best person I can be, though.
Mate,
you know?
You fucking killed it, man. It was like so good to see. And do you think, like, you know, I didn't realize, because I knew you had a karting background, but I didn't realize you had literally no, like, real on-track experience racing cars.
Yep.
Obviously, there's so much talk about, you know, how transferable the skill is from, you know, racing on a rig to racing in real life. You know, now you've had that experience and you held such a good account of yourself. But Jana, we know Jana's got a bit more track experience. James as well, obviously, he did a really good job. In your mind, has this legitimized even more how that link between esports and real racing, how close that link is?
I don't really think of it as I don't know how much more that people need to prove. Like, the simulator is useful. If I hadn't have done, put it this way, if I jumped into that rallycross car, the electric rallycross car, if I jumped into that car and I had never done if I did just the karting I've done, but I'd never done any of the sim racing I've done, I would have been fucking tanked. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would have been useless. The sim gives you an opportunity to develop, hone, try. I mean, obviously there's going to be differences here and there and, like, certain things, and not everything's always 100% realistic and these sort of things. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, it is transferable, because, you know, with limited, you know, we got good track time in certain things, but then obviously for the actual Nations Cup we had 2 laps practice. So, like, you have to adapt, you have to learn, and, you know, at the end of the day, in real life, nothing substitutes for experience. So, you know, you can't just, one thing I've got a little bit, I mean, obviously, what I'm happy with is it helps prove that sim racing that you can do it. But I think there's also people are maybe taking it almost too far. Like, people are now saying that, oh yeah, like, I mean, this is obviously an extreme example, but I have seen things like, oh yeah, now anybody on the F1 game can just do what Lucas did. No. Like, that's just not how it works. I'm not saying that because I'm trying to take extra credit, because that's absolutely not what I'm doing, because I see the achievement as something that I want to share with the sim community, as something that, because it's not just like one game. Like, you have to to do the racing there, I used every little bit of experience from every single background of racing, watching videos, sim racing, racing with the karts, sim racing on the sim. I used every last little bit from every single one of these things, not just one thing, not just playing the F1 game.
You're not just a sim racer. You're not just an
like,
F1.
It's not just
2021
it's not like these skills are things that you have to pick up from so many things. It's not just a direct correlation. It's a package. Like, I couldn't, for example, I believe with time, but like with time you could do it if you just played F1 and jumped onto that. But I mean, I've played Assetto Corsa, I've played iRacing, I've played R-Factor, I've played multiple sim titles. I'm using all of the knowledge I've gained from each and every single one of these things. I mean, even if it's from playing Dirt or WRC5 from multiple years ago, I'm using every last area of what I've learned to do it. So I think people need to be very, very careful as to how far they take, that it's proved that it is possible, but only if you use these things correctly. You can't just jump in with the arrogance of thinking, oh yeah, he's proved that we can all do it. Don't generalize like that, because trust me, it's not easy. Like, in the 2 practice laps with the electric rallycross car, I came into Yarno and went, fuck, this is hard. Like, I was not in control. Like, there was times on that lap I wasn't in control. It was so hard to do. It was you have so little time to prepare yourself. And maybe if you have a full day of testing, it's a bit different, because then you get time and time and time. But we didn't have time. We didn't just. You have. It's so. I can't express how difficult it actually is, and I don't want people now to get too far ahead of it. Like, don't just think you can randomly jump into a car that's got 330 horsepower on ice and it'll be easy. It's not easy. It takes so much mental thinking of, like, not overthinking, but trying to use every last experience you've got, whether it's watching videos on YouTube, whether it's you're driving on the sim, whether it's from karting in the rain. You're literally using any experience at any point, from any stage in your life, adding it all up for that one lap. That's literally how it works. It's not just, I've played the F1 game for 15 minutes, now you can transfer that to a car. If people think that, you've got it wrong.
Because that's what I mean. It's not just, and even all those things, it's also your ability to extract that level of performance in that moment. That's what, mentality, like you said, the mental side of it is just as big, if not a bigger component than
at the top level esports. The mental side makes arguably the biggest difference. When it counts, it's the mental side that can make the difference.
It all happened. It all went down. Do you remember looking at your phone for the first time after?
Yes.
Yes. Messages from parents and friends,
I looked at my phone and I put it immediately back down. I'm not joking.
I ain't got time for that, right?
I looked at it and put it straight back in my bag. I was like, yep, that's getting dealt with later. Like that, I can't.
That's phone, a future Lucas problem.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I'd never seen that many notifications in my life. And I literally had, no exaggeration, between replies and messages, hundreds. It was hard to, it was crazy. It was just crazy. And I'm very grateful for, and I try and show that. I'm grateful for it. It's one thing saying it, but I try my best to, make people realise that it generally means a lot.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do. Just speak your truth.
My whole life led to that one lap.
Yeah,
that's literally what it was. I said that to I spoke to myself in the car when I was waiting to go on the track to go to the grid. You've watched your whole life to get to this point. Enjoy it. And I certainly enjoyed it.
There's so much emotion there, and I'm sure you're still, like, you said it yourself, you still haven't fully processed it.
Yep.
going forward now, obviously the future, 2022 is just begun. Obviously, you've just had this amazing way of starting the year. Both in the near distance. Obviously, we know you've announced that you're no longer with Aston Martin for F1 Esports this year, and both in 2022, but also long term. Has this made you really consider real racing as a potential, more so than you would have previously, to doing e-ROC and therefore Race of Champions? Is that more of a realistic thought in your mind now, do you think?
Yeah, real racing is something that literally hasn't left my thought process, put it that way. It's put it this way, I always wanted to be a real race driver. I started in karting, and that was always the goal. I wanted to be a Formula One driver. So real racing has always been the top thing I would want to achieve.
Yeah.
And it's something I want to do. I've never sort of made that a sort of secret. I guess it's something I want to try and achieve, and I wanna, I'm hoping that I'll be able to, get a chance to do that at some point. And I mean, at the end of the day, I just hope that if I work the same way I've worked with sim racing, that I can hopefully make these sort of things, come to reality. And that's the idea. I mean, I'm just, I do believe I can get in a real car and hopefully race. Yeah, I guess
You've proven it, mate.
I guess that all I can say to that is I guess time's gonna tell. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to hope. I mean, I hope that it can happen, but we'll see.
Lucas, I've got one more question actually. I want to double back to something from much earlier in the podcast. Actually, something you mentioned, and it got me thinking. And you were talking about how, in terms of goals and moving forward, you see it's always going up, and you're always going to be looking for more and the next thing.
Yep.
Do you have particular goals in mind? Like, are you someone who sets, in 6 months I want to be doing this, in 2 years I want to be doing this, in a month I want to be doing this? Is that present in your mind at all? Or do you just kind of, is it, because I think the best goals for me, the best goals in life are the ones that you are never going to achieve. They're the ones that you can always strive towards.
Yep.
Because that gives you that kind of, that's something to focus on, to keep you focused, to keep you motivated. But their conclusion is, well, it could be whatever. You know what I mean? To be the best racing driver you can be. Well, who decides what that is?
Yeah. I mean, I have things I would love to achieve, that's for sure. But I mean, it's an element of both. Like I've got things I would love to achieve. I mean, I want to become F1 Esports World Champion. I mean, that's not changed. That is my profession. So like, that's naturally something I want to achieve. I mean, I had a good try last year. Sadly, never happened. But I'm hoping that in the future I'm able to take it that another step. Because ultimately, it's one thing to do well for 1 year. It's about consistency, about keeping that up consecutively. And the thing is, I don't feel like I've ever proved myself enough to myself. Not really so much about for other people. I don't really think about that too much. But I'm always trying to work hard myself to prove I'm worth it, if that makes sense. Really, I mean, I'm never complacent. I'm very minimally complacent. I don't ever think that lap's good enough. It's always, no, I need to go faster. And I have put it this way: if I hadn't have done that, I would not have gotten to this point. Period. End of story. Like at any point. And yeah, I mean, and another goal is to do some real racing. That is a goal. I want to make that happen. I will do. Hopefully, I'm doing. I mean, I need to get for example, my race license. So, that's something that, I'm going to try and achieve. And then, I mean, it'll happen if it's meant to happen as such. I'm working on I'm going to work on, trying to make it happen as best as I can. And then if it happens, it'll be, that's really cool.
Work on the things you can control ultimately,
yeah.
which
True.
you can only control so much in life. Lucas Blakeley, mate, it's been an absolute privilege. Honestly, this has been such a good podcast. There's a reason it's gone. It'll be slightly cut down. It'll be probably about 2 hours on the dot, which will be the longest podcast ever because it's honestly been. It's been so nice just hearing like
various
the
stories.
story, so fresh and so like honestly, genuinely taught, mate. It's been honestly a privilege to have you on. Have you had fun?
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun. I mean, I like the podcast format suits me because I don't ever stop talking once I start. So it's perfect. It's been absolutely perfect.
You're the perfect guest. Just switch it on. Just go.
Yeah.
No, mate. I'll be following your exploits closely this year. Don't you worry. If you want to follow Lucas, if you don't follow Lucas already, what are you doing? Links in description down below. Get to know. Follow him on Twitch. One of the best streamers out there. One of the best racing drivers out there. Okay, not just e-racing, but real racing because he beat Sebastian Vettel, and you can take that to your grave, my friend. Mate, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much again for coming on. Thank you to everyone for listening. And I don't have an outro. That is the new outro. Me saying I don't have an outro. Done.